Hey, everybody, welcome back to the WorkHappy Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Kettner, and every week we bring in interesting people who love life, who work happy, who have had their own journey to share with the rest of us, not only listeners, but I learn every time I talk to somebody. I get inspired to work happy, to be better, to be kind, and to take care of each other. And today is no different. Our guest today is Aaron Gleadow. He's a friend of mine. We met. I don't even know, Aaron, how or where we met, but you were managing the keg on Granville Island. I was working at the Canucks.
Yeah.
So we had the hockey thing in common. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of, and then you moved on to do something else, and I moved on from stand-up comedy and the Canucks, and then we not drifted apart, but we just kind of lost touch and reconnected a couple of years ago. And so Aaron's an amazing dad, a human being, that one hell of a journey that he's going to share with us today, and the impact that he has had on other people's lives, his kids' lives, his own life, those around him, and even on my life. So thanks for jumping on the show, Aaron. I know it's a little bit daunting at times, but here we are, just two buddies having a conversation.
Awesome, Greg. Thank you so much for the introduction. Yeah, I think it was about 20. Oh man, it must have been 25 years ago now. I was 22, 23, 24 when I was first managing down at the Granville Island keg. And we met because I bought my half-season tickets from you. And
that's right.
That's how we met. You were my ticket broker. You were my sales manager with the Canucks. Yeah. So I think I told you, come on down to the keg, and we things just went off from there. And of course, our relationship looks a little bit different today than it did 25 years ago. I don't think I'm passing out in the middle of many streets like Broadway at 2 a.m. anymore on the way back here.
No. And our lives are just different. We both have kids now, and we're both in relationships. And I was just thinking back as I was getting prepared for this, and you just never know what someone else is going through. And I never knew what I was going through. I drank a lot, probably because just self-esteem, right? I have a couple of beers, I can go talk to girls, that kind of stuff. So it's just been great to see the journey that both of us have had. And now what makes us happy is completely different than what it was 25 years ago.
Totally. Absolutely. And it's interesting because I look at that time frame as really a catalyst in my life. That's really, I think, when, obviously, but I have a history of alcoholism, and I've been sober for 26 months now, which is awesome. And but back then that was a pinnacle in my life when alcoholism addiction was really taking hold. And I was trying to go through motions of what I thought would be happiness or contentness or success in my life. But on the inside, yeah, I was really struggling even back then, just with a lot of thoughts of, I didn't trust myself. I didn't know what I wanted at all. I didn't really have a clue picture on life. I did what I thought I was supposed to do, what looked good. Yeah. But inside I was just dying, man. I was struggling. Yeah. It was rough. I'm not saying working at the keg was fun. Don't get me wrong. That was awesome. But the stage of life I was at was a very difficult spot back then, for sure.
Yeah. No, you weren't alone, right? It may be different things that are in life, but I was doing things. I had a great job at the Canucks. I met people like you. I had great friends and whatnot, but didn't have anybody personally to date or to settle down with. And I thought, if I can just find someone, then things would be great. And I think some of that comes with maturity, and some of it just comes with time, and some of it comes with the cards you dealt, right? Because we were both happy, but we weren't fulfilled, I think. You go to work and you have a good day, or we go to a hockey game and then go out for beers afterwards. We were happy, but we weren't fulfilled.
No, and that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, day to day, I was happy. I liked going out. I liked partying with friends. I was in my early 20s. I didn't really have the responsibility I have now. No kids. I was in my first marriage at the time, I believe. Yeah. And that was it was a light relationship. Neither of us knew what we really wanted. We didn't really fight much. We got along. It was like a roommatey and agreement relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything I was putting in my life, I was looking for something to fill a void, and I didn't know what it was. And so I was trying all sorts of different things. Meanwhile, I was sinking further and further into addiction. And that void was just getting bigger as I walked further and further away from my authentic self, really.
Yeah.
There was just a huge disconnect between the way my heart was speaking and the way my brain was speaking. And they became strangers to each other.
Yeah.
I know that's a weird way of looking at it, but really, I just lost complete touch with myself over the next couple decades, really.
Yeah. No, for sure. And thanks for sharing, because I think a lot of that, or a lot of us go through that, right? When our hearts and our heads aren't connected, it is a struggle. You're trying to find something to fill that void, and whether it's work or alcohol or drugs, people are like, well, doing drugs is a bad thing and nobody has any fun. That's not true. I've had alcohol, dabbled a bit, and it is fun. For me, it was, I think the biggest thing was a social lubricant, right? It was a lot easier. I'm outgoing and I was doing stand up and everything. So looking back, I was like, why did I even need that? But I just thought, if I have that, then I don't have to worry about the void. And I think that's what a lot of people do, is look for something to fill that hole. And then once we find true love or our own happiness or self-love, then that's what fills us up and gives us the joy that we have now.
Totally. And you just nailed it. I actually wrote this down. I was thinking earlier today about one of the questions that got my mind thinking about, which is, what really is happiness for me? What if I could put a definition on what gave me happiness, or what enabled me to experience real happiness, I would have to say that the simplest way to put it is my tenacious pursuit of self, the pursuit of who I am, and then listening to who I am and actually putting it into action, putting the things into action that I needed to do in order to be content with who I am. That had to happen first. I had to become at peace with myself, learn about myself, learn to know who I am. And through all that process, I discovered a few things that I liked myself and that I loved myself. And then I was able to actually reconnect the heart and the mind and start talking to myself. But it was through the pursuit of true, authentic Aaron Gleadow that I was able to start achieving happiness. Because until I knew who I was, I didn't know what was going to make me happy. And I didn't know really how to make other people happy. I thought I did. I could put on the act or the show, but slipped more into codependence than happiness, to be honest.
And it goes back to, obviously, you're a hell of a dad and your boys love you. And I love seeing you guys fishing or whatever it is you guys are doing. But again, that's happiness. But and I've learned this about myself over the years. I've been married for 6 years. Becky and I have been together for 10 years. But it wasn't until I met Becky, that was the first relationship. I was like, you know what? I can be myself and I don't have to worry. She's going to give me some guardrails and stuff and help me to become not a different person, but a better person. Right. And it was the first relationship where I felt like I could be myself, and I'm still working on it. There's days that I'm just like, oh, man, I messed up yesterday, or am I doing the right thing or whatever? But I think it's that like you said, that tenacious pursuit of loving yourself. And then once we love ourselves, then that's where the magic happens. That's when we can love others and make our world a better place.
Totally. A couple things you just said there. First of all, about having a partner that can stand beside you and that can help you when you get a little squirrely. They've got, like you said, the guardrails. I like that analogy. You're kind of and gently swing you back, and it's allowing you to become who you truly are. To have that type of supportive, unjudgmental partner that's there to support you and listen to you and loves you for your authentic true self, and you can really be yourself. And that's something, like, I'm in this relationship with my beautiful partner Kristen, and she and I both are experiencing for the first time a relationship where we can actually be our complete selves around each other. And it's freaky sometimes, man. Seriously, I'm not used to this shit. I'm getting used to it. It's a wonderful thing. But through most of my life, I was scared to be my authentic self. I was scared because I didn't think people would like it, for one, like me. I didn't know if I would like me. And actually, before I got sober, I didn't like me very much. That was the addiction, covering everything up. But yeah, no, it's having a partner that's able to stand with you is an amazingly powerful thing, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so powerful. I've learned so much from her. I'm sure she has. And maybe it's the same with you and Kristen. You're very different. She's more introverted. I'm more outgoing. I talk a lot. She thinks before she speaks. That's where I get myself into trouble a lot. But there's still stuff that I need to work on myself, but I still love myself. Once in a while, I goof up and I'm like, come on, Kettner. But overall, it's working towards how can I be the best person for myself? How can I be the best person for my wife? And how can I be the best person for my kid? And then from there, everything else falls into place, right? The next row is my close group of friends like you and Jeff and Chuck and other people. But if I am having a shit day, I can text you or call you up. And I don't know, I've got probably 4 or 5 texts from you that I have in my happy file on my phone. So when I do have a shit day, I open up my happy file. I'm like, oh, I am making a difference. I do make people happy. I have great friends. And that's the fulfillment. And to the point where I don't need to go have a drink to talk to somebody or to feel like I fit in. Because like you said, we like ourselves. We love ourselves first. And then the rest is just the magic.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And interesting. Many people have different memes and different analogies talking about what opposite of addiction is or how to go. For me, it's connection, man. Like addiction was one of the loneliest places I could ever be. 2 years ago, today's my birthday, by the way. 2 years ago.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, man.
Happy birthday to you.
46. For real.
Oh, you're young, man.
Can't believe it. Yeah, it's. I feel way younger than I have in decades. But 2 years ago today, I spent my birthday in rehab, in treatment.
Okay.
And, it means something for me now. Like today always means something moving forward, because I remember and how I felt when I walked in through those doors, man. I was the most broken human, and I hated myself. I was suicidal. I was having night terrors every night. I had untreated complex post-traumatic stress disorder that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
I had severe alcoholism. And by the time I actually walked into treatment, I had basically closed off from everything. I was just completely closed off from myself and from my kids, from the kid's mom, my ex-wife, and from my community. And I was completely isolated. And it was a brutal experience, man. It was one of the scariest things I've ever been through. And it was like that for years, man. And I hated myself. I hated my life. I woke up every morning wishing I hadn't, and I went to sleep every night wishing I wouldn't wake up. And but it was connection. It was really the connections I started having within treatment that started bringing me out of that, and realizing that gave me the hope. In order to do anything, though, I had to remove the booze first. I had to get rid of that physical addiction. And sure, you can go to treatment, you can remove the physical addiction. For some people, that's okay. Like you can go off, and some people can actually deal with a thing or two, or you can go through life and be able to start their own journey of recovery. It took me it's been almost 2 years since I got out of treatment, and it probably took me the majority of 18 months to really get to a place where I felt content with the world around me and I stopped being scared. And it's through connection. It's through guys like you, other guys that I have in the community here that have rallied around, that I can reach out to and talk to and say anything to. And I love it, man. I love waking up in the morning and having a little text from you to just, hey dude, have an awesome day. I appreciate you today. And it's like, that's awesome to hear those things, right? And that's what really kept me going. And it's connections that also challenge me to continue looking at myself and continuing on this journey of self-improvement. Because I learned so much about myself by being vulnerable to other people. It's awesome. Yeah.
And it's great to see the relationship with your boys and with Kristen. And it's just, for those of you who are listening, there's just a different glow about Aaron, right? Because I remember, I think when we reconnected, you had been following me online and I was going to a speaking conference, like, hey, I'd love to get into speaking. And we had this conversation. I was in the Seattle airport waiting for my flight. Yeah. And then we were going to talk. And then I didn't hear from you for 3 or 4 months. I'm like, oh, I hope he's okay. And then you reached out and that you said that you had gone to rehab. And it's just, I'm so proud of you for doing what you needed to do. Did it take you and if this is too much, but did it take you a long time from where you were just like, this really sucks, to like with rehab, the last thing that there was to do? Or had you thought about rehab? It's not ready. I'm going to go and kick it down the road for a bit. And then you finally, what was the trigger to finally like, I'm done, I'm in rehab?
So about a year before I ended up in rehab, maybe 9 months, it was winter, and it was definitely the year before I went to rehab. I had a night, and it's a little hard to talk about, but I've talked about it before. I had a night where I left our family home. I wanted to die. I wanted to lose my life. And I had a plan. And I was going to put it into action that night. And I actually forgot my wallet at home. And my idea was to grab a pipe to go from a back of my SUV and into the front window out in some farmer's field. I drove about 100 kilometers out of Saskatoon, realized I didn't have my wallet, but I had $20. And $20 was enough for booze, but not the booze and the hose that I needed to run through the window of the car. Wow. And so I bought the booze. And so I sat there in that field and I drank rum mixed with Coke slushy and pack of cigars, and sat there bawling and just trying to figure out what the hell to do. And I just was numb. And that night, I drove home that night. I drove drunk home. Got back to my house and my kids were still awake. And nothing had happened. I went into their room and I read them a story that night. I went to bed in the little room that I had to myself. And I don't know what it was, but that night I suddenly wanted to live. And it was about a year before I went to treatment, but I realized that I wanted to live and I wanted to freaking fix myself. And I wanted to figure out what was wrong. And I wanted to dive in and I wanted to grab onto these past issues that I had and pull them to the surface for the first time and uncover who I was. There's a little kid in me that was just screaming to get out, this little boy, and I wanted to meet him. And so it took me about a year. I tried outpatient treatment. I tried AA meetings. And don't get me wrong, all these different treatments and different supports are awesome. And they have worked for me in various stages of my recovery, but I needed something really powerful, drastic, intense to get me going. And after a year of trying all these other things, it really came down to, I had to go to treatment. That was what was left on the table that I hadn't explored. And when I realized that I had tried these other methods and they weren't working for me, I was just desperate to get off alcohol. And I was drinking close to 40 ounces a day of vodka. Oh, yeah, you wouldn't have noticed. I was probably drinking that day that you and I had that conversation and you were in the airport. Like, nobody would notice because I just had it to a certain amount at a certain time so that I could operate, so I could function. It was down to that point. So I just hit it. But yeah, it ended up just like That was it. So that was really the catalyst that led me to treatment, was this fact that I just somehow acquired out of the freaking cosmos this huge, overwhelming desire to live. And I knew that if I didn't get rid of the booze, it was killing me fast, man, by then.
Yeah. And maybe it was that you read the stories to your kids and you're just like, oh man, this is something to live for. Because I've never been there, but I can imagine when relationships have gone sideways or whatnot, you're just like, okay, I need something different. I need to figure this out. I either need to move on or do something. That's awesome. And thanks for sharing, because I know there's people listening that may be where you were. There may be people listening where you are now. But it's, if we can reach out to each other, help each other, and do the things that we need to do. And I'm glad you said that there's all these different kinds of services for help, outpatient or AA or whatnot. And they're all good. It's just finding what works for you individually.
Absolutely.
To make
And what
it
works for
successful.
you totally. And what works for you at that stage in your addiction too, because some things are going to be more effective than others. And depending on how long you've been drinking for, if it's alcohol, you need medically supervised detox. It's dangerous not to. You can seize like easily. I've seen it. I've seen it when I worked in healthcare, and I've seen it when I was in treatment as well with some of my peers. So it's there's different methods, but you need to find, you're absolutely right, the one that works for you.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things that has come out of my recovery and my involvement in Cedars, and then ongoing involvement with other people in recovery, is that I've really become open about sharing about my journey in recovery and sharing about anything to do with my mental health or addiction. I'm ready to talk about it, and I do. And the cool thing that's happening, the more I talk about it and the more open I become about it, the more people I have reaching out to me privately. And it's amazing. It's an amazing thing. People that from every walk of life, some that I've known since high school, and others that I've just met. But I have people reaching out to me regularly now saying, how do I ... I'm struggling. I'm hurting. I'm in pain, man. Like, how do I? And I love that. I love just being able to be available to whoever, if they need help, if there's part of my story that can help a single person, that makes me happy. That makes me super. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's that point of service. And I know a lot of people with addictions or alcohol or mental health. I recently read a study that 8 out of 10 people won't talk about their mental health, even if it was with work, whether it's their manager or HR. They won't ask for help because of the shame and guilt. And I'm wondering, in your case, you probably felt some of that shame and guilt too. But my question is, if you felt shame and guilt about the drinking, was it as worse going to rehab and coming out and helping people now, and people are asking you how to get help? Was the shame and guilt worse? I don't know if I'm saying this right, but was it not as bad once you went in? Was the idea of the shame and guilt bigger than it should have been?
Absolutely. And that's just it. I had so much shame and guilt because I took addiction as a personal defect of my own character. So I looked at everything that had to do with addiction, and addiction, it's freaking insidious. It's gross. It's evil. It's going to suck you dry, man. And it did that to me, even though on the outside I lived in a middle-class home on a house on a little street and 3 kids, and had my job with healthcare and all this and that. Inside I'm dying. And inside I'm also doing things like you hide money so you can buy your booze. It's no matter, even if you're not going out and cheating and doing like stealing cars and beating people up, there's insidious behavior that comes with addiction that is just absolutely, it's lies, and it's completely like, it's a false life. And so I felt an enormous amount of shame and guilt because I took that upon as, what's wrong with me? What am I doing this before? Why is my behavior looking like this? This isn't how I feel. It's not what my heart says. So why am I acting this way? And interestingly, it took quite a long time before I actually hooked that on and was like, oh, this is addiction. But really it had to get to the point where I was dealing with the addiction itself before I could actually deal with all that shame and guilt. Once I did deal with the addiction, and once I had an understanding of what addiction actually is and how it affects people, and I could lose my own self-judgment to addiction, then I could forgive myself.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's tricky. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, finish your thought. You said it was tricky.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say it's tricky because there are still things that creep in for sure. And I have to check myself. And I'm pretty good now when I start getting down on myself about things from the past. But it's so easy for us to feel shame and guilty about our behavior. Right. And that's without addiction. That's for everybody. Or be self-critical, those types of things, or negative self-talk. And these are all the things like that I've been able to help identify in my life and try to wean off of. And the more I wean off of those, again, guess what happens? I'm a happier human. I'm more outgoing, I'm more giving, I'm more social. I take care of myself better. So I treat myself with more respect. I treat myself with more health and love and compassion and empathy and all those great things. And it comes out of me and I share it with my boys. I share it with Kristen. And I become a better father. I become a better partner. I'm able to listen to other people and actually listen to them as opposed to thinking about myself while I'm listening to them or what have you. And so it's the shame and guilt still pops up, but being able to eradicate that and allocate that shame and guilt to where it belongs, which is addiction and not me as a human.
Yeah. And now that you do love yourself and you have found yourself, I'm sure if stuff does creep in, it's not to the level as it was because you know how to deal with it and you've had conversations with people. And at time again, when I have conversations with people after I speak or during a coaching session, and we're talking about mental health. I'm like, yeah, I go see a counselor. They're like, really? Because we all have shit in our lives, but we try and go, oh, I'm good. Life is good. The one thing that I've learned a lot, and my wife has taught me in doing what I do now, is just have more conversations, listen more. You don't always have to give an answer, but if you're just there for people. And I know that what you're doing now in your work help you create a spot where you can thrive, right? You've been there, done that. You can see, you know where you're headed, you know where you are. And there's so many people that you are never even going to hear about that your stories help. It could be someone listening to this podcast right now going through the same thing and going, you know what? Maybe I need to check into rehab. What would you say if someone's listening right now and they are at where you were in that wheat field?
Oh man, I would say first of all, there's hope and you are enough. You're enough. Whoever you are, if you're stuck in that wheat field right now and you're having those same thoughts as I did, and the same thoughts so many people that are in addiction and not in addiction, just anybody with mental health. There's so many people that come across that and you're enough. You are enough. Yeah. You can do it. And there's always hope. But yeah,
that is awesome. Yeah,
that's true.
Oh man, I just want to give you a big hug.
Virtually great.
It's so incredible, and even until this podcast, for those of you listening, I didn't know the depths of where you were. One of the coolest things is when we reconnected, I asked about your older brother, and you said, "Oh, we had a falling out now," and I can see the joy and the proud and the passion in your heart because you've helped him go through obviously he's doing his journey. Everybody's got their own journey, but whether you've encouraged him or talked to him or listened, and that is so cool that you see the good in what you've done, and now you want to spread it and share it with everybody else. And Oh man, I'm so proud of you, man.
Thanks, Greg. It's the coolest thing having, I'm 6 years younger than my older bro,
Yeah.
and him giving me a shout about a year after I was out of treatment saying, "Hey man, I'm going to Cedars and I'm going to go get sober." And then seeing him a year later now, and he just returned from a trip in Europe with his daughter. He took her to Europe for
Yeah.
3 weeks, toured around looking at museums, and he could have never done that in addiction. And
Yeah.
he said that. Like, these are things that you get to do in recovery, and when you've connected with yourself and you're true to yourself. And it's just so cool to see Cam do that. And you know what? The trickle effect is huge. It's actually had an effect on my entire my family that of origin, my
Yeah.
parents, my brother, my sister, on my children, on my partner, on my ex.
Yeah.
It's this trickle effect keeps coming out, and the more people, I can't take credit for it. It's just so cool, man. I just absolutely
Yeah.
love it, and it feels so good to just be able to share and see that flame take light. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it was before I got into treatment. There were a couple people that reached out to me, and that they shared their own journey. They shared their own story. They told me I was enough. They told me there
Yeah.
was hope. And these types of things was what kept me going one foot in front of the other until I was able to actually get my ass into a place where I could be like, okay, I'm here, freaking fix me.
Yeah. And sometimes that's what it takes. You're like, I'm at the end of the rope. I need help. Good on you. You've done all the work. You just know you have the tools now to continue the work on yourself and to share with other people, which I think is brilliant. What better vocation is there than to help other people live better lives, to love themselves, to love their families? If we all loved ourselves more than we do, if we all loved each other more than we do, a lot of these problems in our world are going to go away.
Yep. I
Right?
completely.
But it's getting back to the basics. It's taking care of each other. It's taking care of ourselves. I tell people all the time, we have to be more selfish. People are like, what do you mean more selfish? If I'm not in the right frame of mind, how am I going to help be there for my wife, or be there for my daughter, or be there for you, or be there for my clients? If I'm not right, there's no reason for me to get up on stage and go, hey, everybody, work happy. I'm not, but go for it.
Yeah, totally.
And that's not to say either that I'm perfect. I have shit days.
Yeah.
That's life. And if I have a bad day or a call goes sideways or whatnot, I'll start over again. I'll go golf. I'll take a nap. I'll do another meditation and back in the saddle.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reset and keep going.
Yeah. Do you have a go-to when you are having a crappy day?
I have some go-tos. Yeah, I do. I've discovered a few things. One of the things that I've discovered is I'm a very extroverted introvert.
Okay.
A ton of social energy, and I have like a pile of spoons every day, and I can hand them out, but I only have 10. And when all 10 are gone, I need to be introverted.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. And then it's like, I got to get home. But for me, it's quiet, just being in a quiet and safe environment. I love being at my own house. It's incredibly safe. So I come here, and I also use the serenity prayer, which really grounds. It's grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So it's a simple prayer, but it's grant me the serenity, accept what I can't change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that just really grounds me. It really makes me realize, is this in my control to change? Whether it's a mood, whether it's something that occurred in my life that day, whether it's something somebody said to me. And it just takes me a second to really go, I can't change that. I have to learn to accept that and let it go. If that's the way it's going to be, if I cannot change that, then I've got to find some peace around it somehow. It doesn't mean disregard it. It doesn't mean don't deal with it. But it does mean that I have to have some form of acceptance around it, because that is the reality. And that's the way the world is. And so those
That's
two things,
awesome.
quiet and alone, and the serenity prayer, and those things always really help me come right back to ground. The third
Yeah.
thing that really helps me, I gotta say, this is pulling in somebody else now, but my partner Kristen is phenomenal at either just sitting there quietly listening to me. She shoots me a really great perspective on things sometimes, and she can really ground me as well, and nobody's ever been able to do that before. So that's pretty cool to have a woman in my life that I can look at and just knows me so well that she's able to help out like that. Yeah.
You know, that's great that, like you said, you guys complement each other, and that's a real partnership, right? She can bring you up when you're down and vice versa and whatnot. And it's a better world when we've got other people going through what we go through and have love and empathy and kindness and understanding and patience. But probably isn't easy to live with me a lot of the time, but my wife is very patient with me, and especially with the stories that I tell. I'll start a story and I'll look at her and I get to, oh, I've already told that one. Right. So there's patience, a lot of patience there. But hey, I'm so proud. Thank you for a couple of two things and we'll sign off. But I always like to end with a rapid fire question, one word or one sentence answers. And I always bring them on surprise to people because I don't want them to think about it too long. But question number one, if you're ready, what's your favorite ice cream?
Oh, pecan walnut with caramel.
There you go. Look at that. Number two, what makes you happy today?
What makes me happy today?
Yeah.
My true, authentic self, Greg.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. And again, finally, if somebody's listening to this and they're struggling with their mental health or addiction, what would be, I know, you've already said that you are enough, you matter, but what would be one thing that you could say to somebody saying, hey, here's the next step.
Yeah.
Here's what works.
Reach out, talk,
yeah,
share your issue, tell somebody. I know it's super scary, but once you reach out, tell somebody, talk, it takes away that fear. Facing fear head on actually takes its power away. Connect with somebody, but reach out. Scream if you have to.
I love it. Yell from the top of the mountain, I need help. And we all, none of us have lived a perfect life yet. No. Although I think my kid thinks she has, but no.
Yeah. How old is she? 18, right?
18. Yeah, you've got 3 perfect boys as well, too, right?
I do. Yeah. A little younger. 6, 10, and 12.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Aaron. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm so proud, and it's exciting to see where you're going and the amount of people that you are helping. Like you said, you get texts and phone calls. Hey, I've seen a difference in you. How do I get there? What do I do? How does it help? So I just so much love, man, for what you've done and where you are.
Thanks, Greg. The feeling's mutual, brother. I love you, man. And it's so great to have you back in my regular life. It's so cool to connect like this. We got along back in the keg and Canuck ticket days and partying and hanging out downtown Vancouver, and to come full circle and see both of us in these awesome positions where we are in our lives right now, being able to share with others and do what feels natural and comes from the heart is just so exciting. I love it. So thank you so much for today.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Same thing. I could say the exact same thing back at you. And I'm looking forward to sharing the stage with you. And if things work out, I might be up there for a conference in November. So we'll have to hang out and go get a big fat juicy steak at the keg.
Absolutely. I haven't eaten at the keg in 10 years. So I'll hold you to it.
We'll do it up.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Thanks again, Aaron.
Pleasure.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. If you have any questions for Aaron or myself, feel free to reach out. You can find me at gregkettner.com. You can find Aaron on LinkedIn and on Facebook. But we'd love to have conversations because you are enough. Reach out. Everybody's here for you. Everybody's cheering for you, and we're better together. So until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go work happy.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Great.